I'm a beta. After successfully disguising myself as an omega, I rushed overnight to the house of that elderly, sickly, bedridden alpha patron. But when I got there, the man wasn't old at all. He was young, strong, and looked like he could knock me out with a single punch. After half a month of non-stop work day and night, I simply couldn't keep it up anymore, and I confessed my true identity. I'm actually a beta. Betas can't bear children. Beta? I nodded frantically. Hearing my confession, he smirked, grabbed my hand, and lifted it above my head. If you're a beta, then we'll just have to work even harder. 1. A relative introduced me to a job. The task was to carry on the lineage for a lonely alpha. Supposedly, this alpha was old, weak, bedridden, and his only wish was to have a child who could inherit his legacy. Without a second thought, I agreed and rushed overnight with a forged report. The truth was, I'm a beta. The main difference between a beta and an omega is that an omega can bear the child he wants, whereas I, no matter what, couldn't lay an egg even if I were killed. Still, I forged the report and hurried over. After all, who would turn down money? Especially when the other party might be an old man unsure of whether it would work or not. Basically, it was free money. The address led to a villa district, and the butler immediately took me up to the 3rd floor. Along the way, I marveled at the corridor's decoration. The last time I'd been in a place like this was more than 10 years ago. It seemed my uncle's patron was wealthier than I had imagined. Lost in admiration, I barely noticed the butler opening the study door. Sir. The man put down the documents he was holding and looked up at me, a strikingly handsome face. Ethan, right? My gaze swept over his youthful features, then lingered on his broad shoulders, his long, defined fingers, and finally returned to his face. Wasn't the patron supposed to be a frail old man with one foot in the grave? Wasn't he supposed to barely be able to get out of bed? Wasn't he supposed to have only a little life left? 2. Oliver didn't notice my expression. Do you remember me? I panicked and tried to search my memory. I hadn't seen someone this good-looking while picking through trash, washing dishes, or delivering food. Coming up empty, I honestly shook my head. Never seen you before. Oliver lowered his eyes and replied lightly. For some reason, I felt like the moment I answered, his mood dipped slightly. But I didn't have time to think about it. I asked if I could step outside to make a phone call. Once outside, I quickly hid in a secluded spot and called my uncle. What's going on with this? Isn't he supposed to be old, weak, and sickly? He's not just young, he looks even stronger than me, okay? There was a hesitant tone on the other end. I don't know. The one I contacted before really was an old man. Seems like you forgot to ask his age. The important thing was, I had assumed that because he was elderly, when it came time to fulfill the contract, I could use a little trick to get by. Now, that was impossible. Ethan, can you endure it? After all, the deposit alone is over $1 million. With that money, we could pay off the rest of our debts. And think about it. If he were a healthy, wealthy alpha, who would casually hire an omega? He must have some hidden issue. But don't worry, when the time is right, your uncle will help you escape. It sounded easy to say, but what if it were you being pressed down? Thinking about the money, I managed to calm my anger a bit. Got it. The study door was ajar. As I stepped forward, I overheard the butler talking to Oliver. When we brought this gentleman in earlier, I noticed his walking posture was unnatural. For the sake of your descendants' genes, should we arrange another medical check? My heart skipped a beat. A sickly omega could be rejected. The first requirement for qualification had been, physically healthy, no hidden illnesses. I burst in. No, I'm not sick. I hurried forward, circled the desk, and walked straight to Oliver. I lifted the 2 thin straps at the waistband of my pants. See? It's just uncomfortable to wear, that's why I walk strangely. I'm completely healthy. 3. Originally, I thought the few straps my uncle had me wear were meant to restrain the patron's neck, like a safety measure in case things went wrong. But unexpectedly, they had a completely different effect. Oliver's calm, composed expression gradually warmed, a faint blush spreading even to the back of his hand. He raised a hand, pressing his fingertips to his brow, then pulled a sheet of paper from the stack of documents. It was a contract, clearly outlining my responsibilities and the compensation I was entitled to. Sign it if there's no problem. The contract was detailed. I read it carefully. Everything was fine. No sooner had I put down the pen than Oliver approached me. He seemed to be inspecting me, his palms roaming, his head lowered as if sniffing. Unfortunately, being a beta, there was nothing for him to detect. To prevent him from noticing anything, I whispered, I took a suppressant before coming. Oliver didn't respond, only muttered an and circled me with his arms. I was held in his embrace, my feet kicking in the air, unable to reach the ground. I forced down the impulse to punch him in the face and tried to stay as compliant as possible. Even if I wanted to resist, it probably wouldn't have helped. Oliver's strength was enormous, one hand tightly at my waist, the other pressing across my collarbone. Besides my flailing legs, I was pinned like I'd been nailed down. He nuzzled into my shoulder and neck, leaving wet marks, like one of the two mangy dogs at home. Thinking of him as a dog made it less uncomfortable, but soon I realized Oliver was far scarier than the dogs at home. After all, they wouldn't bite my grandfather's lover. 4. I didn't notice when the butler left. The spacious study was now just the two of us. I expected the struggle to happen at his desk, but Oliver pushed open a hidden door. Behind it was a bedroom with a double bed. He threw me onto the bed and began slowly undoing his shirt. To get it over with quickly, I started unbuttoning mine too. Seeing this, Oliver's movements became faster, even ripping off buttons toward the end. I remembered the brand of the shirt. It was expensive, and the buttons were valuable. Following the trajectory of the flying buttons, I knelt on the bed, trying to retrieve them. As soon as I grabbed one, I felt a warmth at my back. At that moment, I realized what was about to happen. I forced myself to stay calm, hoping to regain some sense in Oliver. "Boss, I have no experience. Could you go easy on me?" Hearing this, Oliver's breathing deepened. "Don't worry, I won't make it uncomfortable for you." I nodded, thinking he was right. Even with his hidden condition, it couldn't be worse than working 14 hours straight like I did. 5. The discomfort was about the same as a 14-hour shift. I sank into the soft mattress, and even a small movement would get dragged back. Oliver was like a stone, pressing me immobile. I felt like a shapeless rice cake, twisted into weird positions, only to be devoured. Distracted, Oliver began biting again. I couldn't take it, sneaking a pinch at him. Oliver froze, his expression showing a noticeable change. I pushed him away. "Can we take a break? My back isn't great." "Okay." Oliver flipped me over but didn't stop. "This will feel a bit better." Me. Finally, during the break, I showered and curled up in the blanket without even moving my fingers. Oliver hadn't yet lain down, rummaging in a drawer for something. Suddenly, I felt a cold touch on my back. Oliver had come over with something icy. I shivered and instinctively blocked it. "Boss? For your medicine," he said calmly, eyes steady, which slightly eased my guard. Still, it felt awkward having the patron attend to me. My identity was already fake. Now having Oliver take care of me felt even more improper. "I can do it myself." Oliver moved past my hand. "I'll do it." Seeing his resolve, I gave up and helped him hold the item. "I'll help you, you apply it." The expected cold sensation didn't fade. Instead, a gentle warmth spread. Oliver's voice came from beneath me. Again. 6. When I woke up, Oliver was gone. Smelling food from the hallway, I clutched my back and jogged over. Lunch was already prepared. Any dish I chose was a luxury I normally couldn't afford. I sat down, eating while secretly checking messages from my uncle. "Ethan, don't slip up. Make sure it looks like his pheromones are attracting you." Seeing that, I felt a twinge in my backside. "Daily practice?" "Of course, daily is best. He's a top-tier alpha. His attraction to an Omega is like money is to you." I could almost understand the comparison. For the money, endure it. Just be a little more proactive. Suddenly, the food in my hands tasted bland. Oliver returned home before dinner. He set his coat and bag aside, then took off his watch. Throughout it, his gaze never left me. It made chewing the meat in my mouth oddly unappetizing. "How's your body? How is it? If you experienced it yourself, you'd know." I felt a storm inside but forced a slightly shy, reserved expression. "Thank you, I'm fine." Oliver nodded, using chopsticks to serve me. All evening, he watched my preferences, occasionally asking about my diet. I didn't mind. He genuinely cared about my belly. His attention was so constant, sharing every meal, checking on my mood, bringing small gifts after work, that I almost felt like I was dating him. Several days had passed since. Seeing his handsome face again, I remembered my uncle's advice. So-called attraction was just drawing closer to the other person. I didn't bother with expressions, simply asked, "Shall we continue tonight?" At my words, Oliver's breathing paused noticeably. He responded decisively, efficiently lifting me and the plate in front of me. "All right, the rest, we'll continue upstairs." 7. Oliver was probably born under the sign of a dog. I had never met anyone who could bite like him. No part of me escaped, and I would start trembling whenever I saw his mouth open. When my vision blurred from the torment, I thought of my uncle. Even though he was over 50, he still looked refined. I began considering when to introduce him to Oliver, but that thought was quickly chewed up by Oliver. In the following days, even the slightest sign of me being friendly would immediately land me back in the bedroom. He seemed like a machine, working during the day, coming back at night to relentlessly engage until midnight. But from the previous experience, He had learned to control his strength better, so what happened last time didn't repeat. It also meant I no longer had a reason to claim an injury leave. When I finally begged for a day off, Oliver wouldn't let me sleep alone. Even with the lights off, I could feel his fiery gaze glued to me, and his hands circling me with restless intent. Half the night I had nightmares under his stare, and in the latter half, while he slept, I quietly slipped out of his arms and crawled under the bed. But the next morning, I was awakened by Oliver biting me. I didn't know when he had pulled me back onto the bed. He tugged my hand down, nibbling my lip as a reminder, rest time is over. After half a month of day and night exhaustion, I couldn't take it anymore and shoved him off. Actually, I'm a beta. The creaking of the floorboards stopped abruptly, leaving only Oliver's uneven breathing in my ears. He propped himself up, eyes fixed on my hand. Beta? I nodded frantically. I'm a beta. I can't. I'm sorry I lied to you. Hearing my confession, Oliver only became more intense. He lifted my hand above my head with a smirk. If you're a beta, then we'll just have to work even harder. 8. Oliver wasn't shocked, nor angry. Instead, my words seemed to excite him further. He exhausted me to the point I couldn't even make a sound before finally holding me in the original spot and falling asleep. The next morning, I messaged my uncle to explain the situation. After a long silence, a reply appeared. He might think you're joking. Relax, Ethan, you're just too nervous. The money's been repaid. I'm looking at new rental places. I'll let you know when it's ready. My uncle also sent a novel. You can read this, learn from it. The story followed a young Omega who endured a similar life, serving a strict alpha while helping the household during the day. The Omega would try to avoid the alpha, but each time the effort backfired. I couldn't relate at all. Despite enduring such horrific torment, the Omega would wake the next morning and immediately start cleaning. I slammed the book shut and had the housekeeper bring lunch to my room. Lying in bed for long periods was tedious, and walking too much would strain my back. After thinking it over, I pushed open Oliver's study, planning to find some books to read. His computer was still on, multiple foreign language files open on the desktop. With nothing better to do, I used it to translate the files. Time flew when I focused. By the time I looked up, it was night. The room was dark, and Oliver had somehow been standing there for a while, waiting. Sorry, I said quickly, standing. I was bored, so I just translated a bit. Oliver took the mouse, scanning the files. After checking, he gave a slight approving look. These 3 points are wrong, the rest is correct. He carefully explained the errors to me. Listening to his voice, I felt nostalgic, reminded of my childhood language teacher who corrected my mistakes in the same way. But after the family went bankrupt, I returned to school domestically, eventually missing out on university due to family circumstances. Ever considered working at my company? The salary I offer would be better than anywhere else. I felt tempted. With just a high school education, my resume would have been filtered out from the start. Interviews wouldn't even be an option. But if I stayed here, the whole scheme would eventually unravel. Then repaying the debt wouldn't be the only problem. I shivered and changed the subject. I think we should finish what needs doing first, then consider other options. You're right. Oliver nodded, somehow wrapping an arm around my waist. Let's go. 9. Oliver was so terrifying that I started avoiding him, trying to stagger meal and rest times. But it didn't work. Even if I hid in a distant guest room at night, Oliver would find me while I slept and carry me back, continuing his relentless method. Realizing this tactic was useless, I tried another approach. I acted clingy, pretending to have feelings for him to provoke disinterest. That failed too. Not only did he not grow tired of me, but his smiles became more frequent. He even let me sit on his lap while he worked, discussing company projects as if I weren't an outsider. Every time I tried to stand, he pushed me back down. After several repetitions, I noticed an undeniable change. Oliver's gaze darkened, making me shiver. I began doubting whether this money could really be earned by an ordinary person. Even machines need maintenance, right? While I was lost in thought, Oliver had already shut the computer and started carrying me toward the bedroom. I hurriedly held his hand, trying to stop him. He clearly misunderstood. Want to do it here? He hesitated for only a second, then cleared the desk and pressed himself against me. If it's uncomfortable, tell me, we'll go to the bedroom. I just wanted to go home. 10. After a month, both my body and mind were completely exhausted. In the end, I couldn't take it anymore and pulled out the medical report my uncle had prepared. When Oliver saw it, he froze for a moment, then a faint smile curved his lips. Let me see. As Oliver reviewed it, the butler was still present. He quickly scanned the report, then furrowed his brow. You should have informed me about something this important. Going out alone is very risky. I just didn't want anyone watching me, that's why I went myself. The butler still clung to me, refusing to let go. I think, for the child's health, a full checkup at a more authoritative hospital would be safer. That butler was as irritating as the first day we met. I ground my teeth in frustration. Oliver propped his chin on his hand, seeming to consider the butler's words. A few seconds later, he looked at me for my opinion. Seeing the faint smile on Oliver's face, I felt a little braver. I stepped forward, tugged on his sleeve, lowering my voice. I just went to the hospital today. I don't want to go again. I don't like the smell. All right. After that, Oliver started spending more time at home. He would come back early for lunch, and eventually began working from home all day, never leaving. Though it was a bit annoying, Oliver obeyed me in everything. His attitude made me bold enough to treat him almost like a servant. I want this. Okay. Never mind, I don't want this one, let's pick another. Sure. After a few days, I didn't feel guilty at all. Instead, I felt uneasy being watched constantly. I want to go shopping, buy some things I'll need later. Sure, I'll go with you. No need to trouble yourself. I mainly just wanted to wander alone. Oliver agreed quickly, but he seemed to forget one very important thing. He forgot to give me money. 11. I felt too embarrassed to ask directly, so I followed Oliver in my coat. While he worked, I circled around him. When he went to the bathroom, I gave him directions. Even to get a drink, I had to follow him to the kitchen. When he still didn't react, I pulled out my empty pockets and dangled them from my coat. Finally, Oliver noticed my unusual behavior. He stopped what he was doing and looked at me. Do you want me to help tidy your clothes? He smiled, walked over, and bent down to fix my pockets and the unzipped zipper. All done. When Oliver looked at me, his eyes glimmered, almost seeking praise. I hesitated. No, about paying. Oliver's smile widened. 12. Once I got Oliver's card, I went shopping frequently. Since announcing my pregnancy, Oliver had been very proper, barely touching me. At my insistence, he even moved to the guest bedroom next door. I was left alone in the main bed, sleeping until exhausted. At night, I returned from shopping with multiple bags. After showering, I collapsed onto the bed. Maybe it was the coffee I had in the afternoon. I was physically tired but mentally alert and couldn't fall asleep. Around 1 a.m., I heard a crisp sound of a door opening. My hair stood on end, and I froze on the bed. Footsteps approached. Through the faint light from the curtains, I saw his face, Oliver. My heart eased slightly, but something felt off. Why was he here so late? Surely not because I spent too much. He moved silently, lifting a corner of the blanket, and embraced me from behind with a low sigh. I was grateful to be a beta. If I were an omega, I'd probably already have given myself away under the influence of his scent. I thought it would end there, but Oliver didn't settle. He started tugging at my sleepwear quietly, unbuttoning it. Once everything was undone, he adjusted my stiff body into a new sleeping position, then slid under the covers. 13. I realized that the idea of spending my days calmly after the pregnancy was just wishful thinking. Oliver's desires were far greater than I imagined. At first, it was only at night. I tried to endure it, but over time, even during meals, he wouldn't leave me alone. I resisted when a spoon approached my mouth, trying to escape from his embrace. The more I struggled, the tighter he held me. Then I noticed something unusual and froze completely. Move a bit more. Oliver's ears flushed, his breathing uneven, and his gaze made my whole body tingle. I couldn't delay any longer, I had to run. 14. I started paying attention to Oliver's work schedule. From 9 to 12 each morning, after breakfast, he was busiest and would stay in the study the entire time. Even that meddlesome butler wouldn't come upstairs during those hours. Between 10 and 12, the maids would mostly be in the kitchen preparing lunch. After timing it carefully, my uncle and I arranged our plan to escape next Tuesday. On the day of our escape, I carried the luxury goods I had bought, clung to the edge of the second-floor balcony, and jumped down. I avoided the street cameras and dove straight into a beat-up three-wheeled vehicle parked outside the villa. My uncle saw me, flicked his cigarette away, and sped off. The most dangerous place was the safest. So after fleeing, I didn't head for another city. Instead, we settled in a remote village in the mountains. The area was isolated and hard to access, and according to the locals, my uncle and I were the only outsiders renting a place there in recent years. I felt safe moving in, planning to lay low for a few years. The deposit from Oliver had been paid, and only a small balance remained, enough for my uncle and me to live comfortably for a few years. When my uncle mentioned making braised pork for lunch, I cleaned faster, eager to finish. For over 2 months, this routine continued, with indulgent meals leaving my stomach softer and a little rounder. After tidying the dishes, I collapsed on the bed, bored. The house had everything I needed, except entertainment. Even the Wi-Fi signal was unreliable. I had tried gaming before, but the poor connection kept me from logging in. This time, the connection was strong. I clicked to match with a team. While waiting, the system suggested, people you may know. Looking through the list, I didn't recognize anyone. I thought, playing alone is fine, playing with someone is also fine, and randomly invited one player. They accepted almost instantly. I turned on voice chat to break the ice. Hey, bro, what position do you play? The other didn't use voice, but communicated diligently through text. Half a day of teamwork later, I developed a strong camaraderie with this skilled, patient teammate willing to humor my chatter. I added him as a friend and scheduled matches daily. Eventually, I asked for his number for easier contact. He didn't hesitate and sent a string of digits. After adding him, a sense of familiarity washed over me, and a faint image of someone came to mind. After a pause, I cautiously asked, "May I ask your name?" A smiley face appeared, followed by 2 chilling characters. Oliver, 15. I had added him as a friend in the morning. By noon, Oliver had caught me and brought me back. The ride back was tense. The 2 alpha bodyguards in front were pale. Hard to imagine just how overwhelming Oliver's scent must have been. A semi-transparent divider rose between the back and the front seats. I was already nervous, and seeing it made my hair stand on end. Oliver looked over, his gaze icy. "Why did you run? I've been looking for you for so long. I provided you with a place to stay, 3 meals a day, everything you wanted." He fell silent, and the emotion in his face was impossible to read, anger, hurt, or both. The air itself seemed to pause. I caught the oddness in his tone, but I didn't have time to think. I looked at him and forced out, "I was just messing with you." Oliver snorted and laughed. That night, through teasing and torment, I begged him to take it easy. His chin rested on my shoulder, nibbling my earlobe as he said, "Why are you crying? I told you I was just messing with you." 16. Perhaps because of the child I carried, Oliver didn't push me too hard and took me to shower soon after. Only after recounting these past months of life did he finally calm down. In the bathtub, he touched the calluses on my hands. "Do you really not remember me?" He had asked this the first time we met, but even scanning my hippocampus, I couldn't find any memories of Oliver. Seeing my confusion, he sighed. "Do you remember when your family arranged a match for you as a child?" Hearing this, I vaguely recalled that there was indeed someone like that. When I was 8, my parents brought home a boy 4 years younger than me, forcing him into my arms. I started seeing him at home frequently. Though he didn't talk much, he was good-looking and soft-tempered, and I never got angry playing with him. After becoming familiar, every holiday I asked my parents to invite him over. But contact with Oliver ended in middle school. That year, my family went bankrupt, owing millions. My parents had to sell property, pull me out of my overseas school, and transfer me to a regular school. Still, a portion of the debts remained unpaid. My parents worked tirelessly for over a decade but still left me alone after their deaths. After losing contact, I asked my people to find you. They searched for a long time, but said your family had moved away. Later I realized, they only said yes to me. The moment your family went bankrupt, they abandoned any responsibility. Oliver's gaze darkened. "After all the help your parents received from mine in earlier years. Sorry, I was too young to help, so you were left out there." He held me, and water slid down from my shoulders. I felt a mix of sorrow, shock, and a strange sense of joy. It took a long time, until the water cooled, for our emotions to stabilize. I turned in the tub, carefully wiping the redness at the corner of Oliver's eyes. Then I realized something was off. Wait, I remembered the person my parents arranged for me as a match was an Omega, wasn't he? 17. You're not an Omega, are you? Oliver countered, aren't you an Alpha? My original assigned gender was indeed Alpha, but years of malnutrition and exhaustion had prevented me from developing at the expected age. My glands had atrophied under that life, leaving me a Beta. I differentiated into an Alpha at 17, but at the hospital, they realized the original diagnosis was wrong. At the time, I was disappointed. Oliver bit my finger, his gaze roaming over me. I was wondering how 2 alphas could live together, but now I don't have to worry about that. Seeing him start to make a move, I punched his chest. If you wanted to contact me, you could have done it directly. Do you know how middlemen take a cut? That deposit had given my uncle 20%. Thinking back, it still made my wallet ache. Oliver winced and rubbed my hand. I couldn't contact you. I froze. It was true, my old phone plan had been too expensive, and to save money, all the family's SIM cards had been changed. So, from the start, you knew I was a Beta and couldn't. Oliver paused, then placed his hand on my stomach and rubbed it in a vague, hard-to-read gesture. You became a Beta due to later circumstances, so it's not impossible. Let's try a little harder. 18. I couldn't live like a worm in Oliver's house forever. After a few days of clinging to him, I began looking for work. With Oliver's funding, my uncle had opened a car shop, and business was decent. He had invited me several times to work as a clerk. Oliver noticed my hesitation and leaned closer. Want to work at my company? If I went now, colleagues would imagine 1,000 different things about our relationship. I was no longer the young master I had once been. Without status or degree, rumors would spread instantly. Seeing me remain silent, Oliver smiled and produced a school brochure from somewhere. How about going back to school? My heart stirred. But don't worry about anything. Isn't it normal for a company to train its employees? Oliver saw through my concerns. What you need to focus on now is improving your grades. I really hope to see you working with me in the future. I'll wait for you. Extra. Oliver kept a closer eye on me than before, afraid I'd slip away again. I couldn't take it anymore, so I lifted my shirt to show him my recently rounded belly. Actually, I wasn't lying in that report. I'm about to give birth soon. We can't sleep together lately. My expression was serious, with no trace of joking. Oliver seemed taken aback, nodding while touching me. When's the due date? I pulled a random date. A week from now. I'll need confinement afterward. You'll arrange it for me. Oliver agreed to everything. Over the next few days, he didn't touch me and moved obediently to the guest room. A few comfortable days passed, and then, reminded by Oliver, I realized today had arrived. That night, Oliver, worried I might have an accident, offered to sleep with me. I refused firmly. No, I'll manage myself. I locked the door and slept peacefully until morning. The next day, opening the door, I saw Oliver sitting on the floor, reminding me of all the promises I had made the night before. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, clearly having not slept. Awake? Oliver half smiled, grabbing my wrist as he gestured inside. And the child? I tugged the corner of my mouth, showing another pure, innocent smile. Daddy. Oliver smiled too, wrapping his arm around my waist and guiding me inside. Don't call just yet. Call me in a little while, and I'll listen properly.